Welcome to In This Body, the online event to support parents and caregivers with staying regulated, embodied, and connected, even when things get intense. And I'm honored today to have Cristy Benitez Allen with me as a speaker. Hi, Cristy.
Hello, Nadine. It's good to be here.
Thank you so much for being here. Cristy is a queer Mexican American, detribalized Cascan and colonial Iberian mestiza, mother, storyteller, and licensed psychotherapist focused on decolonial somatic depth psychology with 15 years in clinical practice. She's based in California. She's a ritualist and initiated medicine keeper, trained as a priestess in sacred arts. She's also a certified ancestral lineage healing practitioner with vows to live the repair. She coaches parents in resolving the intergenerational trauma and root in animist ethics with kindness, beauty, kinship, and wisdom. So I'm so honored to have you here, Cristy. All those topics that you mentioned in your bio, like they are very dear to my heart.
Mm.
Yeah. So tell us more about who you are and the work you do.
Yeah, I hope to live up to that bio and really offer something today. I'm a mother. I have a 6-year-old son, and I also want to honor the unborn daughter that never came through in spirit, who also initiated and impressed herself on my heart. So I like to acknowledge that. I also want to acknowledge my lineages at the start of all of this, with a lot of acknowledgement and love for my ancestors from the villages of Juchipila, Zacatecas, Mexico, um, and just honoring my lineages and especially my mother and my father for the ways that they championed us, and allowed me to grow in the ways that I've grown. I really appreciate the hard earned struggles to really shape our relationships. So I always want to honor just my lineages and my ancestors at the onset of all of this, who without them I do not exist. um, so I was born and raised in Los Angeles, and my beloved is also from England, and we had this, cross the world romance that really brought us together. And when I think about the journey that I've embarked on to heal, I have this kind of gratitude that I had some time to wrestle with big ideas and wrestle with the beast that is psychology. That's the only thing that we have on a sort of mass scale in modernity to help us with healing. But I think that when we go to the roots, we've always known how to heal, and that our people have practices and ways of being in the world that we also need in modernity. um, so I want to make sure that I weave some of those topics into today, and that I honor my people and where we're from, and the migration stories that we hold as well, because it crosses lands and waters and all sorts of earth territories. So it feels like an epic story that we all share around being humans on this earth, and how we do life and how we raise kids, and that it's a mess, and we should wrestle in that mess and also make it beautiful.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And this speaks so dearly to me as a immigrant myself, and also coming from um, Middle Eastern lineage myself, but also traveling in so many places. Like I now appreciate the beauty of the different cultural backgrounds and like the commonality that is there between. We might seem different on the surface, but really deep down in the roots, there's such common threads running um,
Yes,
through many lineages.
yes. And we can learn to love the earth anywhere we're at,
Mm,
and learn
yeah,
to remember anywhere we're at.
yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. Uh, so where do I start? I mean, you talked about uh, you know what? I'm going to start with this one word that you mentioned, healing.
Sure.
A-
Yes.
And and what does it really mean? Like I know it's um what does healing really mean?
Yeah. Well, that's a really big question and it's quite open, but I think it goes first to naming that there are wounds and there are ruptures and that being human isn't easy and that it begins with these moments where um, something misaligns or there's an injury or like an emotional injury or a physical injury or things like that. So it's like we have to recognize that living means that we live on a slippery earth where there's duality. And so when we're here, we can get injured. We recognize that there are plants on this earth that are poisonous and plants that are medicinal. And what does that mean to be medicinal, to be healing medicine, to be a healing plant? And I think us as human beings, we can also choose to either be medicinal or poison. And the decision around what kind of human are you? Are you a healing person? Are you offering healing? Are you healing? Are you repairing things? Speaks to, like the decision that you have in your character um, on this planet. Like, are you going to do the healing work or are you just going to repeat patterns?
Mm.
Um, and we know we inherit certain injuries, we inherit certain troubles, we inherit certain burdens. And it's like, even before we're born, we already are born with these stories and legacies that come before us, or legacy burdens. And like I can say personally, from my history and my lens and my intersectionality as a woman, as a queer person, as a mestiza, there's already quite a bit of like things to wrestle with, things to grapple with, because we're down lineage from a patriarchal system that's created systems of dominance. And even within being down lineage from colonization, like I'm already wrestling with having these blood lineages that harmed each other, or like at least one harmed the other, right? And so now I'm grappling with having heritage that was both colonized and colonizer. And that creates a certain injury, a moral injury, and a psychic signature in the body of the family. And some of that is like the ways in which women were dominated, the ways in which Indigenous people were dominated, the ways in which the land itself was exploited, the ways in which the land was also harmed. So when I take that big soup of injury and then it runs through my individual body, that's a lot. And that's a lot of pain. And it shouldn't be that way. And like for me as a mother, it's like, okay, I'm down lineage from all this trouble. I felt the intensity of those energies, those energy signatures. Um, and what do I do about it? Because I lived the experience of those cycles repeating, of even like the infighting with my siblings, of like the wrestling with my parents, who also were very conservative and Catholic and were very rejecting of earth-based and earth-honoring ways. They were so confused by it. And then at the same time, it's always been there. And then like the more that they're aware of it, the more they're like, oh, of course these things need to be reclaimed. Of course we have reverence for the corn that feeds us. Of course, we have reverence for the cacao that's been warming our hearts this whole time. Like all of those things that were implicitly there, but a whole machination of systemic ways of thinking, like a whole worldview that is like this modernist view that we're separate from the earth, like essentially was like a virus that took over me and my people. And like the more and more disconnection, I was like, I'm growing up in the United States, quite westernized and with a really westernized education. And all of that is like further separating me out from my roots, my values, the things that I knew to be true, because whenever I went back to my homelands, I could feel the potency. I could feel what it felt to be, like the land itself felt like it would re-energize me, like it would feed my soul. So I think about the ways in which this kind of thing of what in which the injuries and the pains and the traumas actually were asking me to wake up and to remember and to restore and to reclaim. And bit by bit, I was able to do that. And now I feel like I have like this bounty of of new old ways to share with my son, with my community, and it just feels amazing to be able to do that.
Yeah, wow. Um, it, I want to go back to that part, like remembering, reclaiming, and like being feeling the bounty. You say it, the bounty. It's the richness that um, sort of just comes into being when you do this kind of work. And we call it healing, but like this is what it is. It's like being. I think it starts with being aware that the injury is there and not denying it, acknowledging that it is there, and remembering. It's like a process of remembering. Mm,
It certainly is. Mm-hmm.
yeah, yeah. And uh, it is like you say it as well, like we inherit it in our blood lineages. So this body, like, can you speak more to that? Like, how does this um the word you use was the energy signature that's the
Mm-hmm.
word that you use. How does
Mm-hmm.
it play out in the body? Um,
Yeah, great question. Well, okay, like I know, for instance, I can tell you like examples from me. Um, when I think about the very fact that our bodies are an inheritance, that bodies beget bodies, and here we are because there were several bodies that came before us. And so we already know we inherit a genetic form based off of the union of these people coming together, right? So we have these features, these features that we have for our body, but then we also inherit epigenetics. So there's like actual like signatures in our genetic codes that know when there was famine 4 generations back, that it actually impact the way that your body metabolizes or doesn't. We already know that it will also lead to inflammatory markers and disease. We already know that is now being proven actively in science, things that the village knew as well. So it's like old information that is now being corroborated by science. So that is one way for sure that we are inheriting things in the body. But I also recognize the ways in which we inherit psychic burdens, things that are passed down in terms of like I can reference in my own lineage, like feeling not enoughness, feeling not good enough, and that being an experience of being Indigenous, and for a long time the way the whole society was shaping around you're inferior, then the superior is the European line. So that shows up in how, like, certainly how I walked in the world with a felt sense of inferiority, especially in American culture, a sense that I wasn't good enough or wasn't smart enough or didn't have enough, or that I didn't have the wealth or whatever those things were that are categorized as more prestigious or warrant more respect or whatever that is. And like those things I saw like wreaked havoc on my siblings, you know, like the ways in which we moved in the world, that we're constantly wrestling with these energies of like either inflating or deflating because we weren't right sized, because we didn't really have like, it was almost like, does a plant grow without its roots? No. It's like the only way is to really feel into your own dignity. And I feel like that was one of the things that I had to actively reclaim, was a process of atonement between my lineages, so that we can all really come to the table at respectfully, like with that sense of true respect, to reclaim and restore dignity. Because actually, when we make others feel less than, we're also injuring ourselves and our souls. So it's like, it's the balancing out of those mechanisms of like dominance, to be like, okay, that's got to fall away so that we can all come to the table with our full heart here.
I love this. Yeah, yeah. And you mentioned the word like full respect. And I think this is one of the uh, missing things in the world right now. This full respect for life, for the earth, for the owl, that okay, we're humans and we're sharing this planet with the wonderful creatures on it.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Which, you know, for me is like, you know, the colonial project, which went out to create, they just fabricated reasons to say this, we're superior and you're inferior, all as a way to economically advantage themselves, right? And in order to extract resources and exploit. So it's like this huge fabrication of the colonial project that continues as capitalism today, that makes people feel inferior, and therefore you have to purchase things all the time, which makes things inanimate and therefore to be used as we want, you know, which is another kind of dominance. It's another kind of delusion to have. So for me, like the ways that we're going to shape culture here towards this healing, towards this healing goal, or I don't know, like I want it to be a movement, right? I want us to all move towards this reclamation of the old ways, the old ways of a worldview where everything is truly alive. And that is an animist path. And by awakening that animist path, especially because our children innately have it and they're actually like conditioned out of it, right? So, like, children will have reverence for the trees and name the river, and, you know, and be in connection to the imaginal realm with the fairies. They'll have these intimate relationships with like a living world and a living existence, and we'll tell them like, oh, they just have imaginary, like they're just, you know, have imaginary friends, or they're in their imagination. But actually there are so many sources of wisdom that's not human wisdom, that's not oriented to human ways of perceiving things, that can actually get us humans to be right sized and stop thinking that we're superior here on this planet, which is causing them a major injury.
Yeah, yeah.
It's destroying the planet, it's destroying our environments, it's a huge injury.
Yeah. And it's like destroying us in the end.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. Uh, I want to talk more about this um, animism as a path to like reclaim what our true wisdom.
Yes. Yes. So, you know, how this has unfolded for me was like when I became a mother, and I had my child, and I had already like gotten to see 14 nieces and nephews grow up. And And I felt like I was doing a lot of triage work of like, oh, this is going to injure them. Let me try to get in there. Let me try to help them out with this, because I saw like the acculturation process of the United States injuring my nieces and nephews. And I could see what was happening again. And when it was my turn to raise my child my way, it's like, I want to decolonize my parenting. I'm like, who is out there doing that work? Let me learn from them.
Mhm.
And there was like it was during the pandemic time, and so it was a very like fear-based time, right? Everyone was in so much fear, so much uncertainty, and it was like people had so many losses and there was so much pain at that time and people were sick, and it's like it was awakening the kind of frailty in the human spirit that then like also makes people fight, like there's tension. Um and at that time, like the political landscape here in the United States made me and my siblings start to fight with each other. And it was like a reconstellation of the kinds of tensions that existed even before in our heritage. And so when I felt like these energies were moving through the system, and like I was like, how do I keep going on my healing path, because I felt so under siege. I felt so under attack in like I'm a new mother. There's all this uncertainty, and yet I'm in this strange like situation where all of the systems are on pause. Like everything that we thought was the way things had to operate, all of a sudden was shown to just be a construct. And I got to be at home cooking every meal, and it felt good. And I got to just kind of have this like safe space that's like almost like it's like it was like in a little incubator of like, what do I decide to do with this time? Like, who am I going to be as a parent, and how do I want to live my life? And I used to live in Los Angeles, and it was like a very urban existence. And then I was just like, maybe this isn't actually what I want, even though I'm close to family. Maybe there's another way that I want to grow and be here. And this reckoning around like I'm down lineage from colonization and these injuries, and I was like being initiated by the ancestors to come back to them. Like the grandmothers were showing up and saying, you use your voice, you say what the truth is. We were never able to do that. We were never able to stand up to the patriarchy. You do that. And I'm like, okay, feeling their backing. And it's like, it's time to do this healing work and repair the injuries that had happened within my own lineages. And as that started to unfold, I felt carried. I literally felt carried and held to a whole new existence where I could do things a different way, where I could remember the old ways. And some of the initiations that came through were like connecting to grandmother corn through my grandmothers, the initiations I had around the miscarriages, like all of these initiations that were painful and yet were guiding me in a way of like, this is how you remember the lands that we're from. This is how you reclaim the medicines that were lost. This is how you remember the old stories. And out of that, because I grew up with complete erasure of my Indigenous heritage. 100% I was being raised in a Eurocentric way with very Catholic values, and then completely suppressing these other parts of me. So what emerged was ancestor reverence, earth reverence, a whole restoration of an ecology of realizing that I'm in a more than human world. Whereas like I was completely centered on my human relationships. And now I'm like, oh, I had been missing a big important part of like who I am in this ecology, and a remembering of things like, and it's not just a remembering, it was almost like, here's the gift, here's the thing, here's the new tool here. Like it was like an amassing of parts of myself and parts of who I've been in terms of all the people that came before me.
Mm.
And that's the project that has been now, like, I've been tasked, but now it is also something for me to begin to impart and share with other people on how this is possible for you too. No matter where you are in your world, how disconnected, how many generations have gone by since you haven't paid attention to your ancestors, all you need to do is call them. It's the right etiquette. They're not going to come to you unless you call them. Like, I don't go around knocking on people's doors trying to change their lives unless they're asking me to help them, right?
Yeah, and that's like a very important thing, because like we playing out our free will and asking for help, uh, and asking for the connection to happen. Yeah. Uh, so what I hear is that you started connecting to those elements in nature, and I'm not sure if you have something more to add to this, like around the practices that um, you started doing.
Yes. Yes. So, I want to just back up by saying my my well, I have 15 years under my belt as a psychotherapist, and I feel very privileged that my education in psychology was always very soul based. And so, like, I had already had a lot of dream work, and I had learned all of these techniques around somatic healing, right? Like around how to reconnect to the body, around how to really work with personal traumas that I had also incurred. And so, like, there was already like a body of work that was supporting me in this whole healing trajectory or journey. So it now, when I look back, I can see the ancestors were always there. They were always initiating this path. So one thing that I want to like presence here is that when I was in my early 20s, I got married very young. And I went to visit my grandmother, and I took my husband, and I wanted to capture her story, right? So I sat with her, and I did an interview with her and asked her questions about her life. And I filmed it. And I told her about my interest in being a writer, storyteller. And I just wanted her advice. And it's like, when you tell someone you want to be a writer, storyteller, and then what do? They're going to start telling you stories. And so my sense of like, what are the practices? It's like, it's the beginning to remember the stories. It's like going around and asking for the stories. That's one way that you start to know who you are and where your roots are from, right? And like you do some research about it. You learn about the land, you learn about the ecosystem. Even if you can't go there, that's one way. And so, like, for me, it's like they're very practical, pragmatic things that we can start doing. And then there are the more ritual based things that we can do. And so, for me, I've been in communities for a long time around sacred arts. And so, whenever I was in a dropped in meditative space, the grandmothers would come, So like I remember one time, like I was like in a dropped in space, and my foot just started to do this. And I'm like, why is my foot tapping like this? And then I realized, oh, it's my grandmother at the sewing machine. And she's with me, and I can feel her like with me, with my body. And it's like those kinds of moments where you start to realize, like, we're truly never doing any of this alone. They're with us. There are ways in which they show up. And, thankfully, like, my grandmother's a pretty well in spirit kind of person already. So the distinction here is like, we know, just like in our living relationships, there are people that are unwell and people that are well, and some people that are beyond well, like just amazing people that you already know you can really go to them for counsel. And in some ways, it's really important to recognize that as far as doing like ancestor reverence, which I think as soon as we start to reconnect with the ancestors, their wisdom and their knowledge about reconnecting with the earth comes hand in hand. So the kinds of practices that can happen here, it comes under a few assumptions. So the first assumption is that the dead are not dead, that there's a continuity of spirit, there's a continuity of consciousness. And the second one is that the dead are not all equally well. Some remain as stuck as they were when they were incarnated while they were still in a body. And that we can still communicate with them is the third tenet. And then the fourth is that we actually impact each other and that we can also carry each other along to more healing. So some of the actual more robust practices where we're actually creating the right set and setting to do ritual work, to actually do those repair cycles with our lineages, is, beginning to make contact with a very vibrant ancestor that can help bring the healing to them on their side of the veil. And from there, beginning to go through these practices where there's healing and prayer, and then moving along into a really vibrant state so that they can help clear some of those burdens on the lineage and help to restore the blessings so that we are now carrying those blessings along in our path.
Yeah.
And what's beautiful about it is that essentially we're creating a spiritual council, a council that we can actually go with our day-to-day troubles and questions about life and what we do and how we do it. And, and they give us the assignments, they give us the assignments on like, when it's time to go make offerings on the earth, what kind of offerings to make. I had a lineage that told me very clearly, like, we heal through flower and song. And so I went to the local river here and came with my dog because they were so connected to dogs. And I just sang at the river and offered flowers, and like a beautiful stag crossed my path. And I was just like, they're here. Like I can feel them with me. And I feel like, they were so at my back to get me to a place where I could be with my family and heal and connect with the land here. And it's like they're teaching me how to be in relationship with the land here. And sometimes I feel more connected to my homelands because I'm connected to these lands. And it's a beautiful ongoing reciprocity.
Wow. Yeah. I can imagine it. So beautiful. Yeah. And I love how you bring this whole work to parents who are
Mm-hmm.
raising the next generation.
Yes. Yes, like this is like part of like what I feel has been like such a gift in me being directed to live here in Sacramento on Nisenan land and to learn to be in relationship with the ecology here. And that I felt really called to do a parent-child program when my son was smaller at the river. And it was like a group of parents that came to just be at the river and be right, like it was just like an experience of exploration and just being together. And at the time, because it was so tender that I was going through these miscarriages, like I just felt so cared by the other parents and so held by the land and the river itself. And it's like I hold so much gratitude because I didn't fall apart, I didn't go into a deep depression, it didn't pull me into the underworld to have had those experiences. If anything, I understood that these are just cycles of life, and it didn't come through now, but that doesn't mean this little spirit isn't going to come through my son, further down the line. Like, I don't know. These are the mysteries that I have to hold and carry. But when I think about the parents that all feel called towards reconnecting with the land and reconnecting in this way, there's something that really, I feel like it's I'm going to say, like, it's magic. It's magic that is actually also constellating us to all gather in a new way. And I feel like we're ready for it. Like, it was like when my friend and I were introducing, like, can we look at this in an animist way with the teacher? She was so receptive, And it's like, for instance, among all the children, I was like, I want to sing an Algonquin water song with the kids, and we'll sing it to the river. And they were all transfixed and like, like no one had ever taught them to sing to the river. And it's like, yeah, so often now children are being raised to sing in performance to their parents, but it's like, no, we're going to sing in honor of the river who's been here and you've been paddling in, and she's the one that's cleaning our bodies as our drinking water source. Like, so much reverence for what's actually giving us life and sustaining us. And when you start having that pivot, then you actually care about the water quality, you actually care about taking care of that local river when you realize it's literally sustaining your life.
Mm-hmm. And the children will just see you caring, and they will care, and this whole
Absolutely.
new wave of, values that they can bring in when they go out into the world. And
Yes.
mm, mm,
And it's not new.
mm,
It's
yeah,
not new. We're remembering that that's the way it was, and that's the way it still needs to be.
mm, mm. Yeah, you called it a movement, and I'm with you with that. It is a
Mm-hmm.
movement, and it starts at home. Uh,
Yes.
yeah, yeah. Um, I will include your website below our recording if you want to share more about like how can people find you, and um, uh, currently how they can work with you.
Yeah. Yeah. So as a therapist, I can only work with residents of California because of my license. But as a coach, because I do sacred arts coaching, I work with people all around the world, mostly one on one at this point, but I'm also hoping to create groups so that we can do more of the parenting work together. And I offer ancestral lineage healing so we can tend to your ancestors and heal up our people, because the more that they're healed up, the more that energy of of blessing can come through in our lives, and we can get the apprenticeship that we so sorely need, and the guardianship that we so sorely need, because I think there's a lot of people feeling really lost and disconnected right now, and we need not realize, I mean, it's like we need not feel so disconnected when we realize like what's holding us right now. The earth, you know,
Mm.
like every single object that we're engaging with is a piece of the body's like the body, the earth of the body, right? So it's like everything I'm wearing is the earth of the body, the body of the earth. I'm sorry, I keep getting that a little bit mixed up, but yeah, so it's my honor and my privilege to just feel like I'm getting to not only share who I am, but the stories of the people that I come from. And so I have like ongoing circles to offer storytelling as well. Like I do that offering as well, locally, but I'm hoping to do it more publicly going forward.
Thank you for sharing that. Um,
Mhm.
one last thing to wrap
Mhm.
this up. Uh,
Oh, one last thing for me.
yeah, yeah. Any last thing you'd like to share?
Oh,
Oh,
I feel it's a privilege to be in service of the descendants, and I know that my work is really, it's so strange because like I feel so called to work with parents, because I know that that's like the most key place of influence for children, and I trust that children will receive the lessons that they need to receive from the earth. But I also want to just invite that consideration of like, when we as parents come into contact with our children, we're also coming in contact with the ancestors, because this is a cycle that keeps repeating, right? And so there's an opportunity for us to repair and to work these lineage burdens. There's an opportunity for us to reweave the narratives and to take this direction of humanity in a good way, like that we can restore a way of being in balance here. And I have this ongoing prayer for, especially because there's so many children right now under horrendous conditions on this planet, and it's our job to protect them. And like the more that we boot out some of these negative energies that are perpetrating all over, like energetically, the more we get really strong with vibrant, wonderful spiritual support, the more we feel like we can now embody those gifts and then act accordingly to shape the world and the culture in a way where we can live sustainably and in good relationship and in harmony with the earth and with the other than human kin.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. So true and so beautifully said. Um, this has been wonderful. Yeah, thank you so much, Cristy, and thank you for
It's
all
my
the
honor.
work you do. Yeah, yeah.
It's my honor and my pleasure. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.